They built America's deadliest weapons, but today, they're fighting a battle they were never prepared for. Not against a foreign enemy, but against cancer, broken promises, and a system that seems determined to forget them. They were the backbone of America's nuclear power, working in secret facilities, handling deadly materials, and believing they were serving a greater cause. But decades later, their service has left them scarred, sick, and abandoned. Today, thousands of these workers face cancer and crippling illnesses, not only battling for their lives, but also for the medical care they were promised. This is the untold story of America's forgotten nuclear workers and how policy cuts have left them stranded when they need help the most. Imagine spending the prime years of your life building what your government calls the ultimate shield of national security. Imagine working day and night in factories filled with toxic dust, radioactive materials, and chemical fumes, never knowing that every breath you took was silently planting the seeds of cancer inside your body. Thousands of men and women across the United States worked in nuclear weapons plants during the Cold War and beyond. They weren't soldiers on a battlefield, but they were warriors in their own right, constructing America's nuclear arsenal with their bare hands. Today, many of them are sick, broken, and desperately fighting not only disease, but also the very system they serve. These workers believed that their government would stand by them if they ever fell ill from their dangerous jobs. For years, programs like the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program offered some hope. They promised medical care and compensation for those who developed cancer, chronic illnesses, or respiratory damage after years of exposure. But the reality turned out to be far from simple. The paperwork was endless, the evidence often impossible to gather decades later, and the burden of proof always fell on the sick and their families. Instead of being treated like heroes, they were often treated like beggars knocking on a locked door. Then came policy changes that made their already uphill battle even harder. Under the Trump administration, cuts were introduced that further complicated claims, tightened eligibility, and reduced the scope of benefits. Suddenly, men and women who had worked with plutonium, uranium, beryllium, and countless other toxins were told that their suffering was not enough. Families of deceased workers were left drowning in hospital bills. Widows were forced to fight legal battles just to get a fraction of what their husbands were owed. For many, the cuts felt like a betrayal, an abandonment after a lifetime of loyal service to the nation's defense. Behind the statistics are human lives. Imagine an elderly man, once strong enough to carry heavy steel and work long shifts, now gasping for air because his lungs are scarred beyond repair. Imagine a grandmother undergoing chemotherapy, her body weakened, her spirit crushed not just by cancer, but by letters from government offices denying her claims again and again. These are not faceless victims. They are fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters whose sacrifices built America's nuclear power, yet now they struggle to get the medical support they deserve. What makes the situation even more painful is the silence. For decades, the stories of nuclear weapons workers have remained in the shadows, buried under political debates and bureaucratic red tape. Their illnesses are slow, creeping reminders of a toxic legacy. The factories may be closed, the weapons stockpiled, but the suffering continues. Each delay in claims processing, each denied application, is another nail in the coffin of trust between these workers and the country they served. Critics argue that the cuts were made in the name of efficiency and cost saving. But what is the true cost of saving money at the expense of human lives? Can a government place a price tag on lungs destroyed by radiation, on bones weakened by cancer, on families left with nothing but medical debt? For the workers, the cost was already paid with their health, their time, and in many cases, their very lives. Some activists, lawyers, and support groups are still fighting for justice. They organize, they file appeals, and they raise awareness, but the battle is far from over. Many workers are too sick to keep up the fight, and time is running out for them. Every day, more die waiting for approvals that may never come. Their stories echo a haunting question: if a government cannot care for the very people who built its weapons of power, what does that say about its promise of protecting its citizens? This struggle is not just about past workers, it's about accountability, about whether promises made to those who risk everything will be honored. It's about whether a nation values human dignity over paperwork and politics. It's about ensuring that history does not repeat itself with future generations of workers who may once again be exposed in the name of progress. At the end of the day, these workers are not asking for luxury. They are not asking for charity. They are asking for fairness, for recognition, for the care they were promised. They are asking not to be forgotten. Their fight is a reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are not fought on foreign soil, but within the borders of our own conscience. These men and women gave their health, their strength, and in many cases their lives to build a weapon meant to protect America. But who protects them when the system turns its back? Their struggle is not just about compensation, it's about dignity, fairness, and justice. And as more workers pass away, waiting for help that may never come, the question remains: will their sacrifice ever truly be honored, or will they remain casualties of a war fought not on the battlefield, but in the halls of bureaucracy?